Do you ever wonder what your potential customers are concerned with when they're checking out your website? Well, in today's episode, we interview the homeowner of this beautiful landscape and also the landscape design company, my client, Alpine Gardens. We're in Estes Park, Colorado. It's an absolutely beautiful landscape. So check out today's interview where we're gonna share some ways that you can use your website to warm up referrals so they're aware of your pricing and internet leads also. So come on in, let's check out this landscape. Hey everyone, Jack Jostes here, and welcome to the Landscaper's Guide, where we share sales, marketing, and leadership ideas to help you grow your snow and landscape company. Right now, it's Ramblin Jackson's retreat. It's our 14th birthday. I flew out our entire team from around the country, and we're in Estes Park in the home of one of our clients' customers. So check out today's podcast. If you're new to the show, make sure that you subscribe at landscapersguide.com/podcast. And now let's check out this incredible landscape. All right, here we are at Sandy McCoy's property up in Estes Park. And we've got Brandon, who is the project manager and designer for this amazing property. What elevation are we at right now, approximately?
7,000, something like that. I'm not exact, yeah.
Yes.
It's up a ways.
It's a pretty windy drive here. So one of the things I was curious about is how did you get material, how was it getting materials? And
It was slow. You know, we couldn't bring it all at one time. We had to bring it in smaller deliveries. So it was a challenge, so.
Cool. Well, tell us a little bit about this part of the design. I remember seeing this was all mud and everything at one point. Now it's a beautiful staircase. So tell us a little bit about the design here.
Well, really, yeah, you're right. It was a mud hill that we had to put some sort of stairs in, and we wanted to keep it natural. So we went with these stone steps here that all had to be dropped in from up above with straps. Now, the hardest part about this whole area was this boulder right here. We had to drop that in as well without damaging the house. So it was a little bit of a challenge.
So the home was here and there was no staircase prior to that?
There was a staircase, but it was torn out previous to us getting here. So we ended up having to build something. So this is kind of what we came up with.
There was original drainage issues, and then just kind of curious on how you solved them.
Well, actually, the problems with the drainage happened before we got here.
Okay.
So they were fixed before we started. So, we run into drainage problems all the time. So, but we just didn't have to deal with it much here. We just had to coordinate with the construction crews to make sure we weren't in their way and they weren't in our way.
Building on a mountainside, what are some of the common problems and solutions you do with landscapes?
Well, probably the most difficult is bedrock. We can't plant a tree if we run into rock. So you have to be a little bit flexible, with the design and kind of work with what you're given. As you'll see later in the landscape, we put in water features that have vaults that go down 8 foot. Well, we were just hoping that we weren't going to hit a rock or something. So, and actually we did where we originally wanted to put it, so we had to move it. So you have to be flexible with that type of stuff.
You were intrigued by the steel. You were telling us a little bit about it. I'm curious to learn more. So they like the color, it's a patina, and then they epoxy it, or could you explain that again?
Yeah, so this is all new steel that was beat with a hammer, and then there is like an acid that we spray on the metal to make it rust prematurely. And then when it gets to a certain point, then there's what's a rust arrestor that we spray on it to get it to stop. And then to protect everything and to keep rust from getting on your hands, and then put an epoxy on it. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell, right?
I was curious how you drill through the boulder without it cracking.
They're very hard, but they don't fracture. We use a core drill most of the time with water, and it's a diamond bit drill that cores a hole in it, and you take this plug out. It actually doesn't, it's very undisruptive, I guess, to the rock. So we do that with our water features too, to bring water to the surface of the boulder. And we did it in this case just to mount the metal and epoxy it in the rock.
I know we did a lot of work on like the process at the beginning and trying to make it a little bit easier. Have you seen some help from that where the client maybe understands and trusts you a little bit more from, that was kind of what we worked a lot on at the beginning was,
Yeah.
hey, let's talk through, we're gonna have some time together, make sure that they understand from start to finish so there's less surprises and a little less of that discomfort. Have you seen that they're a little more open to ideas and a little bit easier to work with?
Yeah, I think that the website and all the, I wouldn't call them hoops, but all the steps that they have to go through, it almost, in a way, for me, it kind of builds value in what we do. And if it was just like, hey, give me a call, you know, and that's all it was, it'd be kind of like, we are not as professional as we really are. So the stuff that you guys have done has really helped me as a salesperson just kind of already have value built in the product before I ever talk to them. So it's definitely helped. Now she came from a referral, so she doesn't know about the process, but and talk to people all the time, and they really enjoy the website experience. They think it was very intuitive and easy, and the people that make it that far seem like they are our customer, you know, which is huge.
We've heard that from other clients that referrals they're great. We all want referrals, and sometimes the person referring them coaches them of here's what to expect. Here's the price about what we paid. Mm-hmm. And I would just encourage you when you're selling to give it to people and say, hey, will you read this before our next conversation?
Mm-hmm. And in past experiences, I have seen where that has worked out really well. Mm-hmm. You know, you have a video that you're almost required to watch or a page is required to read before you meet. I think that's a great idea. Pictures are great. I have a lot of people that say, hey, I like this, and they send me pictures from the website, which is cool. It's another tool for me as a salesperson, and it's one that speaks without me saying anything, you know, and it's just huge. So again, you guys are great. Thank you.
Sandy, thanks for having us here today. I was curious, can you tell us a little bit about your home? Did you have it for a period before you hired Alpine, or did you hire them right when you bought it? Or just tell us a little bit of the story of how you connected with Alpine.
Well, I've owned the home for about 20 years, and I had recently a foundation drain failure that required us to basically destroy any previous landscaping that existed in the front of the house. Because they had to replace the foundation drain, repair the foundation, things like that. And so I discovered Alpine actually through a friend who recommended that we check them out. And so Brandon came out and looked at the incredible mess that was this front area, which basically was just all dirt, even a dirt hill leading up to the driveway up here.
Wow. Okay, so there were not steps down to this?
There were no steps left.
There was no patio here?
There was no patio here. There were no pillars here.
Wow.
This portico was basically just shored up by 2x4s.
So did Alpine, did you all end up building this part? Or did
They did the stonework.
You did the stonework.
Our contractor built the pillars, consistent with code and everything else.
Right.
But they did all the stonework, and Brandon and Alpine designed everything that you see here.
So it went from a drainage issue to now there's a water feature and a patio and steps, and there's this cool walkway down. So tell us a little bit, how did this evolve into everything that it is now?
Well, I worked with Brandon and told him what I wanted. I wanted something that really was consistent with the environment up here, because it really is important, I think, to blend into the environment. But I also wanted something that was really beautiful and that I could sit outside and enjoy at any time of day or, evening, at least during the non-winter months. And so he really caught my vision and designed something literally first time out of the box. I didn't have to hardly change a thing. He designed everything, and, without even telling me what he was going to do, he created these beautiful rails and this light fixture that is, I don't know, it's kind of a signature piece. People think it's a statue. There's people are coming by all the time going, where did you get that? I want one. And I'm like, yeah, well, I could give you Brandon's number. And I do all the time.
That's awesome.
He's very artistic.
So tell me, before you contacted Brandon, what did you do? So you got a referral from a friend. Did you Google them? Did you look them up online, or did you just go straight and call them?
Well, I Googled them. I talked to a couple of other people that had used them in the past, and I can't remember who they were, so don't ask.
That's okay.
And I talked to Brandon. I just, really it was all about the personal relationship with the people at Alpine. And, previous people who'd worked here had done a fine job, but it wasn't as spectacular as what Alpine and Brandon did.
And when you Googled them, do you remember what stood out? Like, did you look at photos or reviews, or what were you
I did
looking
both.
for?
The reviews were great. The photos were awesome. I actually went over to the Estes Hotel or Estes?
Hotel Estes.
Hotel Estes. I went over there and looked at a water fountain that they did there. Brandon also sent me some photos of more recent work that they had done. So it was kind of a combination of all of those things.
Yeah. So you looked online, you looked at some photos, and then you went and saw some work.
Correct.
And you contacted a few referrals, and that all kind of checked out that you wanted to move forward.
Everybody sung Alpine's praises, and in fact said, okay, but they're going to be too expensive. And what was really interesting is that I got competing bids, and he was actually the most reasonable. So Alpine was the most reasonable. So not only do they do the best work, they also were the most reasonable price in terms of what I had looked at anyway.
Which part of the landscape do you find yourself using the most?
Well, I don't really use it. I look at it. And the stuff I look at the most is this waterfall right here, because my kitchen is right there. So I love to cook, and I love to stand there at that window and look at this. And then in the evenings, early evenings, I like to come and sit at this table and have a glass of wine and just listen to the water. And, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's very calming, very pretty.
So who else has a question for Sandy or Brandon? We're here. We're on a patio.
I was curious, how long did the entire process take? This is
including the repair work of the foundation drain and everything. It took almost 2 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Is that as long as you thought it was going to take, or was that longer or shorter? Or
I think it took a little longer than I anticipated, only because it took a long time to get people up here to do the contracting work, some of the excavating work, and some of the foundational repair work and drainage work that needed to be done. And we hit into winter, so that took a while. We had to wait through that. So there were seasonal delays as well, and so I don't know that I, in my own mind, factored that in. I think it took a perfectly reasonable amount of time if you look at what the nature of the project was, what happened, what needed to be repaired, and then what needed to be built after the fact. I just didn't understand just how bad this problem was at the time. I mean, to me, it started out with some water in my basement, and I stepped in the water, and I thought it was a minor leak, and it turned into basically complete reconstruction of the front of the house.
Were you nervous to add a water feature after you had to repair the water gym?
I actually wasn't, because Alpine explained to me how they were doing it. They put this big tank underground, and so water just comes from the tank and recycles through. And so it's actually, there was a water feature here before, and this one is 100% better than that one. I think that one did tend to leak. And had they proposed something along those lines, I would have been very nervous, but they didn't propose that. They proposed this, and this tank, I think, feeds, you can correct me, feeds both water features. Yep. So there really isn't any water that gets out anywhere. It's just what might splash off the rocks or something.
Like 2 years for a landscaping project is a pretty long time. How easy was it to work with Alpine, and how much of a disturbance was it in like your everyday life?
It was fun, actually. I'd feed them lunch out on the deck every day, and so people started showing up like, where's the food?
It's true.
It's true. They were very excited to work, and they're like family to me. I mean, when I see Jeremy, I like throw my arms around him and give him this huge hug. I mean, these guys are family. They were kind of my roommates for a year. Well, roommates outdoors, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I'd set up the table over there with a bunch of food. Sometimes we'd make these big piles of chili or stew or spaghetti and meatballs or something. And they were every day like, when's lunch?
Yeah. That's not common. I mean, she's an
delay it 2 years.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted it to end.
That is true. There's some truth to that.
I'd be curious about your first phone call. So that's always the hardest one. It's just like, the first time you actually talked to each other, or your first interaction, how did that occur? Or did you get his number from someone? Or
I did.
You did? Okay, and then did you just kind of call him? Did you shoot him a text? Or how did that first initial touch occur? Because that's always the one that's
I think my
Curious.
soon-to-be ex-husband was in charge of making the initial calls. I was in charge after that. So basically to find out who might be available to do it. So like I said, I talked to a couple of other landscape architects and companies. And so I just was handed a list of the people that that might be available, and Brandon was my favorite pretty much at the outset. Again, it's just a intuitive feel for people, but also I'd get an estimate that was like a single-spaced email that was 3 pages long that I'd have to try to wade through and visualize. It was very hard to do. He comes back with basically a video walkthrough of what it's going to look like when it's done, and a full explanation of how that's going to work and how much it's going to cost. And it was almost like comparing apples to oranges. There was really nothing anywhere near as stellar as what he presented. To give you a level of an indication of the level of trust, for me, he didn't just randomly decide to do whatever he wanted to with the lamppost and the rails.
Yeah.
There was, after we had this whole project going and it was getting very close to completion, he's like, do you trust me enough to just do it? And I thought about it and I said, yeah, actually I do. So please do it. And it is like the signature, it ties everything together, and it's the signature piece, right? He says. So to me, it's like, you don't just randomly trust people at that level to go ahead and do something sight unseen.
Right.
But I did.
Well, so one thing regarding trust, Sandy, that Brandon asked about earlier and that many of our clients ask about is, Brandon said, hey, I don't think she knew that we'd been in business since 1978. I'm curious, does that matter to you?
No, it really didn't matter how long they'd been in business. I think I had a sense that they'd been doing this for a long time, just judging from the quality of the work. I mean, I've had people work for me who have not been in business for a long time, and you can see that it isn't done quite as well. There's a little bit of learning on the job that takes place, and you can't criticize that because you know it going in that there's a little learning on the job that's taking place. But I didn't want that with this project. I wanted people that really knew what they were doing, and it was very clear to me that they did.
When you say that we've been in business since 1978 or whatever, it's always followed by, it's a family business, and we want you to be part of the family, right? And that's what I try to do. I mean, Sandy, she's awesome, right? And I would call her just to see what's going on, how she's doing, how things are working out.
He just checks in to see if everything's doing well, and so does Chesney. Everybody, it does feel like family to me. It really does.
Well, good job, Brandon, for nailing it, right? And that's awesome. And they literally fed you guys meatballs and pasta and chili. So I don't think you could ask for more.
Sandwiches, all kinds of stuff.
So Sandy, what are some of the more interesting wildlife experiences you've had up here in the mountains?
Well, there was a bear poking its head up the other day over one of the rocks down there. The elk loved to come stand in the fountain and drink out of it. One of them was a big bull elk that was like the size of half my house, nose to nose, about 3 feet away with my dog. I'm like, we're going inside. This thing's going to tear the deck down. So lots of big bull elk. There was a moose mama and her baby down there, so I didn't go downstairs for a while.
Tell them about
the
bobcat or the mountain lion.
Oh, the bobcat. Oh, I had a mountain lion experience. I had a puppy, and it was October, November, starting to get winter, so I'd take him out in the evening in pitch black. And I wasn't yet a mountain woman because I only recently moved here full time.
Right.
But I could hear it screaming way up at the top of the mountain. So I turned the corner and I walked a few steps, and I heard it again, this time halfway down the mountain. My dog's ears perked up. He starts growling. I'm thinking, nah, we're going back in. I don't care. Pee in the house. So we turn around and we are headed back to my driveway, the end of my driveway there. I was about up here. And then I heard it at the neighbor's house right down there. So now I have to walk toward it to get to my driveway. My dog is now growling and barking. His ears are back, and I'm terrified. And I don't run, but we scoot ourselves inside. And the dog proceeds to patrol around the house for an hour barking. Yeah, it turns out it was a mountain lion. There were mountain lion tracks all over there and at my neighbor's house down below, so it clearly just made its way right past my house at the moment in time that I happened to be out there walking the dog.
Wow.
I never saw it, I just heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw the evidence of it after the fact too, but
Yeah.
that was an interesting one.
I think she sent me a text saying that I almost died or almost got eaten or something.
I think I almost got eaten by a mountain lion.
Yeah. Yeah. Out of the blue.
Out of the blue. What are you talking about?
Thanks so much for checking out today's episode. I enjoyed hearing Sandy's perspective on what she cares about when hiring a landscape company, and ultimately that she had a great experience. And it was also interesting to hear how referrals are a little different from internet leads, and it gave me some ideas on how we can coach our clients to use their websites for more. So does your current marketing team come and meet with actual landscape customers? Do they understand your business? Probably not. So if you'd like to meet with me and my team to talk about ideas to help you generate really qualified leads, we'd love to have a 15-minute marketing brainstorm conversation with you. In this conversation, we're going to help you figure out who is your hell yes customer and what are some ways that you can use marketing to attract them to your landscape company so they ultimately choose you. Go ahead and schedule your 15-minute marketing brainstorm at landscapersguide.com/brainstorm. I've got the link in the show notes, so just click on it, get on our calendar. My name's Jack Jostes, and thanks so much for tuning in to the Landscaper's Guide. I look forward to talking to you next week. Are internet leads often warmed up better than referrals? There are pros and cons, and in today's episode, we're going to share some ideas to help you get the most out of both. This is rambling nonsense.